Thank you and welcome. It's always great to follow up after Rami, but we'll try and manage. Good afternoon. Before we start, the panel asked me to have a slight raise of hands to see who is in the audience. So if you're an indie developer, can you raise your hand? So that's most of you. If you are working in marketing of PR, and for a publisher, for a publishing company, any other people?
Students.
Oh, students. Students. Okay, so thank you. It's extremely hard to develop a game, but it's almost as hard to get it noticed and to sell it. So today we have three guests to talk about it. Patty Toledo. Is it Toledo? Toledo? Toledo.
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 Yeah, Toledo, like potato, who cares?
Alison Beasley and Rick van Beem. I'm going to introduce them, all of them, more proper? Is that
more proper?
Yeah, okay. All of them have prepared a 5-minute micro talk. So let's start off with you. And now I'm going to introduce you properly, and I'm going to read this to just try and prevent making errors. Patty Toledo is a manager and lecturer at the Academy of AI, Games and Media of the Breda University of Applied Sciences. With a career spanning continents and industries, she was formerly the Chief Partnerships Officer at PlaySense, hailing from Brazil. And now based in the Netherlands, Patty began in the music industry, working with artists like Iron Maiden, Metallica, and Bon Jovi. Ooh. She transitioned to the games industry as head of content for Steel Media's conferences worldwide, and as an ambassador for women in games, she advocates for a more inclusive industry. And that's her. And where is to you?
Yeah, I love that the introduction itself already cuts 3 minutes of the presentation, so thank you. And I can move on now. I want to talk to you guys about guerrilla marketing. If you guys don't know what guerrilla marketing is the marketing with very little or no budget. But no budget is a little bit tricky, but it's the minimum budget possible and as organic as possible. And to picture it properly, these are all the slides I did. I thought, let's start as minimum, as direct, and as to the point as possible. I wanted to start with something actually that Rami was talking before. You saw all these structures and all how complicated games can be developed. And I always find super interesting that when it comes to marketing, most studios think as marketing as, okay, I made a game, I'm gonna go to the market, I'm gonna put a trailer there, maybe some social media, and I'm gonna pray. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that, especially when you have 100,000s of games going out every year. You saw Matthijs saying the numbers today in the talk. The competition is fierce. So some of the devices, because I do really have 5 minutes, and that's the biggest challenge. You think Rami had problem talking that like it's equal. The biggest thing to say is, first, think of your marketing the same way that you're thinking of your game development, early and with iteration. Why do you want to do that? I know it's a challenge, but think of the marketing a bit like the test of your idea before you actually spend time doing the idea. Because if you have a great idea and you spend months developing, years developing, and then you put on the market and nobody liked it, you already missed the point, you already missed a lot of time. So marketing is not only early because you have to sell, it's early because it can save you time, energy, and a lot of heartache. The other thing is, when you do your marketing early, you start creating a community around your game. think of this as when you're creating your game, you want to create an emotional connection with your players. You want your players to be there for you. But then when you're doing marketing, you're thinking of that as user acquisition, whatever I put there to get the players in. No, it's the same concept. The same way that you want to create a connection, an emotional connection with your players through the game, you want to do the same thing with the marketing. You want to tell a story, you want them to be with you through the way, and you want them to be the ones advocating for you. So then you don't need to do marketing anymore. They will. They will be shouting from the mountaintops about your game, right? One thing that I really find interesting, and is the connection with the music and games, is when we talk about music, we talk about fans. We don't say music lovers as users. We say music as fans. But when we go and talk about games, we talk about users, customers. We do customer support, right? Why are we not thinking when we are doing marketing for games the same way that we are talking in other media, and we are not creating this community of fans of your games that really want to do that? Then, I'm very aware of the time now, but I wanted to guys think of two other things, like that has the examples here that I think is. First is think that you're thinking your marketing in long term. You start early and you're doing that throughout the process. And throughout the process, you're selling the story of your game, your team, and yourself. One good example of that, and I put it here, I think that, see that guy there? That guy has a really good story that I love. In 2014, I went to Tokyo Game Show, and their Tokyo Game Show is a huge event and has this indie area, and there is a guy who created a pool game. It's a pool management game. And his idea to sell, because he was an indie developer with no money, he got the booth for free, he dressed himself as a pool. And his booth was a toilet. Bear in mind that I'm not saying that this kind of thing will guarantee the success, but remember that 10 years afterwards, I still remember the guy. This is the kind of thing that you want to create. You want to create marketing and image that people will remember forever. You want to create, we'll talk about brand, the same way that your product is creating a brand that will last, you're creating a brand that will last as well. And last and not least is give your players something to play with. Don't think influencers as the guy with 10 million, 100 million followers. Think influencers as your first players or first community that will actually bring people in, dress up, and we'll forever be talking about that. And I think now I use my 5 minutes.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. Thank you, Pat. So we go to our next guest, Alison Beasley. Again, I'm going to read this. Alison specializes in working with game developers and tech companies to build and implement their marketing and PR strategies. Prior to founding Lincoln Beasley, she ran marketing departments for global publishers. With over 30 years in the games industry, Alison has seen a lot of changes, and one of the things that remains constant is the need for developers to be in control of their communications. And we have to do a little switch for you to
Where
be
am I
able to
going? Am
start.
I using control or am I going up there?
I'm gonna...
You're going to go up there, okay.
Let me... Let me see if this works. Give a hand for Alison.
Thank you. And now,
Flip to
okay.
the right.
Just flip to the right, okay. All right, so particularly when it comes to marketing, Rick will talk you through some of his own buzzwords and bullshit, and even some belief, probably. So marketing particularly, I think, has quite a bad reputation for buzzwords and bullshit, but they're useful. And you'll all have to get, some of them you'll know already, some of them you'll get to know. Now, So part of this whole bullshit buzzwords stuff is about building your brand. So you need to think about what your mission is and what your values are. And this is really critical because you need to be able to communicate that. Sorry, I just need a bit of water. So some of this Rami's already covered. You should know what you're building and why you're building it, and who you're building it for. That should already have been set within the prototype phase, particularly because you're going to be trying to get other people to come on board and build this thing with you. So you're going to have this. Basically, you're asking people to believe in you. They're going to come and need to make a huge leap of faith. And you need them to do that for you. I've lost my bits, haven't I?
Doesn't it work?
Do I just press? They appear?
Sorry?
There we go. Okay, I've got it. They're coming up. All right, so these are some of the buzzwords you'll either know or you'll get to know. Pivot seems to be one that's very popular at the moment. And I can't see
Ideation.
that one. Ideation, yeah. No, I think Rami mentioned that one. I don't know. I have a kind of issues with that one. I mean, it's basically brainstorming, making ideas. That's sort of a bit cringy, a bit bullshitty for me, but you know, some people like it. Iteration. Again, Rami mentioned iteration. This is a good one. This is really important. This works in development. It also works in marketing. You're going to try things, you're going to experiment. They don't quite work the first time. Try it again in a slightly different way.
Key performance indicator.
The KPIs. Now, everybody will have different KPIs. Well, not everybody, but some people, the KPIs will be about gaining followers, how many articles you're going to get, how many people you might engage with at an event, your guerrilla tactics, how far they reach. They're all, they're things that you're going to have to define for yourself. You're going to have to find some way of measuring what you're doing. So that's your KPIs. Actionable analytics. That's another kind of buzzwordy phrase. Basically, all analytics should be actionable. You should know what you're going to do with any analytics that you're going to get. Why are you analysing the data? What are you going to get back from that? How are you going to use that to impact what you're doing positively, hopefully?
Key messages.
Key messages, that kind of relates to your product. You've got to know what it is you're making and what it is you want to communicate to your players, particularly because these two guys are going to need it in order to reach your public. Audience, yeah. Who are you trying to reach? Where are you going? Whether you're making a mobile game, whether you're making a game on Steam, whether it's a sports game, you're going to need to know where to find your audience. Don't try and reach everybody all at once. That's pointless.
Unique USPs.
USPs, again, another one that Rami mentioned. Really define down what it is that makes your product special and communicate. Try and simplify things. That's one of the hardest things to do, I think, in comms as well as in development, as we tend to want to add in more and more and more to make it sound bigger and better and fancier. Actually, what you need to do is you need to really bring it back down. You need to focus and make sure you can deliver on those things. Competitor analysis, yeah, I mean, that's a useful thing to do. Who else is doing similar things to what you do? You think there's a tendency to think that all developers are the same or all mobile developers are the same, and they're really not. I've worked with so many different developers now, and they all have a kind of a chemistry that's different. They have a vision that's different. You all have found the same, I'm sure, and you'll see this when people get together. The chemistry between people's different. Omnichannel marketing. That's basically across all your social media, your Steams, your YouTubes. It sounds fancier than it is. Authentic. Authentic's another fashionable one. Now, you can be I mean, if you're a bullshit artist, you can be an authentic bullshit artist. I mean, you can basically call Donald Trump's authentic. You know what you're getting. You're going to get lies, but he's authentic. So it's really confusing when people say be authentic, because actually, if you are an arse, they're basically encouraging you to really be an arse. But it's better to be an honest arse and be an authentic, controversial liar than it is to try and pretend not to be a liar, because you will get found out. So being authentic is interesting. Now, if your product's authentic or you want authenticity in your product, then that, again, has got to be based on some truth. It's got to be based on good relationships between, whatever organizations, which I might come on to later. Am I going too slow, too quick? Where am I?
Too slow.
Too slow. I'm talking too much. Right, so now here's an example, actually, about a brand identity. Now, this is a very current project. So at the very top here, you'll see that's what's going to be released next week. So that's undisputed. That's the first major boxing game in well over a decade. Now, one of their key pillars is authenticity. So they have real boxers. Canelo's head is just missing off the top of there. I'm sorry, Canelo. He's a very, very influential boxer. So that's the final iteration of the logo and the packaging. The middle was what happened somewhere in between, and the very bottom is what the developers started with. So here, this is what was developed internally, and it was called esports boxing. Now, that was 4 and a bit years ago. And you can see it's a kind of crazy logo. There's a lot going on there. But you can see as the games evolved, as publishers got involved, as marketing's got involved, they've actually simplified it. And we have changed the name. That's a difficult thing to do. But don't get so attached to what you think is the best name that you miss what's really important. And that importance is being able to reach a bigger, broader audience, particularly on console. And actually, this game isn't ready for esports quite yet. It may be in the future. So actually, that name could well be misleading. Am I gone over my time a lot?
8 minutes.
8 minutes over? Okay.
A couple of minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, these are just a couple of things I need you to think about, and might kind of leave you with my takeaways before I hand you over to Rick. Sorry, Rick. I'm taking your time. No?
No worries.
No?
No, thank you.
Sorry. Do I give you that?
No, I think.
Oh,
I think Matthijs.
You'll have it?
you could have these. This, no? I can force you to talk quicker because you have to, you have to make up time.
I will need to do it very.
Anyway, Rick van Beem. Rick is an accomplished PR and marketing professional with over 15 years of experience in the gaming
50?
industry. 15.
15, yes.
You're not that old.
I thought you said 50.
Yeah, 1-5.
Okay, for 1-5. Thank you.
Since years, he is the PR and marketing director at Pearl Abyss, the acclaimed developer behind Black Desert and highly anticipated titles such as Crimson Desert. Rick plays a pivotal role in shaping the company's communication strategy. And Rick's micro talk will be a quick PR guide to increase chances of coverage. I'm really liking the quick part, so...
Yeah, I'll try to make it quick. I think I can already skip most of the first one because the ladies and also Rami in the previous talk already glanced over it. But yeah, basically start very early. Think about what are you making, for whom are you making it, and how do you want to communicate it? What makes your game tick? What makes it special? And I think it's very important also to develop, like a quick pitch, if you will, a 30-second elevator pitch that kind of like encompasses that all in a very nutshell. Because you will need that in pitching to publishers, but also especially to media. For example, just a quick example, our game is a fast-paced retro-style platformer with hand-drawn animations and a unique time traversal mechanic. Think Celeste meets Prince of Persia. This gives everybody who you're talking to, who is, of course, known with games, a very quick, a very quick notion on what the game entails, and everything that's in depth, you can basically, link as a press kit or video materials, screenshots, etc. Don't wait with thinking about communications until you have finished your game. Start as early as possible, much like the ladies have said and Rami before this talk. Then what's also very important is to target the right media. A lot of people, even professional PR people, they tend to use a machine gun approach and they shoot pitches out to everyone, hoping that something sticks. But I think it's very important that you actually select the media that, has a resonance with your game. And the same goes also for content creators. A simple trick for this is, also like what you said, is do competitor analysis. And you can do that on the media side too. Check who has written about your game, about competitor games or games that are a bit like your game or maybe fall in the same genre or cover some of the same topics. And you can then pinpoint those media that are more likely to talk about your game and reach influencers that are more likely to be interested in your game. That will save you, it is very time intensive to start off with, but it will save you a lot of time in the long run, and it will definitely increase your quality of coverage, but also your reach. And once you have identified them, obviously you need to reach out to them. This is where this short pitch comes in process. Quickly pitch them and tell them, what is your game, why is it interesting, and especially why is it interesting for them to cover your game. And of course, you've done your research already, so you can explain it to them. Don't only look at gaming media. I think it's very, even for game PR people, they tend to go after the IGNs, the GameSpots, the Ninjas, the PewDiePies, etc. But there is also there are other media that also cover games, maybe from a different angle. Can be, for instance, startup business or a newspaper with a video game section. I think in Holland, for instance, BNR News Radio is a good example. They have this gaming podcast called All in the Game. And they're sitting right here in the audience, I think. Another one is NRC, and internationally, I think you can think about The Guardian, Rolling Stone magazine, Sports Illustrated. These are publications that not necessarily have games as a main topic, but they have a section in it that talk about games. Or you can approach it from another angle. Also check if your game, for instance, covers subcultures. So, for instance, if you're making a skateboard game, try to engage with skateboard celebrities, magazines or publications that cover skateboarding culture in general, influencers that do a lot of skateboarding. And maybe you can set up collaborations and get a lot of word out that way. So don't limit yourself just to games publications. It's also, of course, important that you start building relationships with media. A very easy way to do that is at events like this one or an event like Gamescom. Key here is that you try to plan it as early as possible. I would say at least a month before, because if you don't, then those media will be locked in with other meetings, with other publishers and other game developers. So it's very important that you plan this ahead of time and not just wait, my build is ready or my demo is ready, now let's pick up the phone. Make sure that this is part of your planning, part of your project planning, and just add it into your development trajectory. And when you reach out, make it personal. So don't use the scattershot approach, but really try to engage with them on a personal level. Make sure that you've done your background check and know what these publications are writing about, what they're interested in, because that will also make the journalists feel valued, because you're not wasting their time. Because it does not really make sense to pitch, for instance, a PlayStation 5 game to Pocket Gamer. I've actually seen people doing that. So yeah, just yeah. So yeah, please take some time to learn more about who you're engaging with.
1 minute, Rick.
Yeah, I'm going. Yeah, when you pitch, very quick. So use KISS methods. Keep it short and simple. Again, elevator pitch is your savior here. And then also track and thank the media for your coverage, even if it's negative. Use it as a learning, even though most publications are objective. A review or a preview is always subjective. It's what the editor thinks about your game. But sometimes, you know, the editors might be mismatched, might not be their genre, but maybe they also have constructive feedback. Engage with that and see it as an opportunity. Thank them for the coverage, thank them for the feedback, and you can turn it into a chance later on, because if you might have fixed some of those issues, you can re-engage again and say, hey, look, you know, I took your feedback and I've implemented it. Would you want to have another look at it? Yeah, and pro tip, yeah, if you have any positive coverage, try to distill some great scores or good quotes from articles and use them in your marketing materials. Because you can say, as a studio, my game is good, but it's better if you say, IGN or BNR says the game is good, because that's independent and that goes a longer way than if you say it yourself. Yeah, and yeah, then in conclusion, yeah, it's all about strategy, building relationships, and respecting the time of the people that you're pitching to. And I hope that with these couple of steps, you will increase your chances in getting your game covered. And I hope to read about your games very quickly.
Thank you, Rick. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and then we'll open up for questions from you guys. I was thinking about this earlier during a talk by Matt Handrahan from Kepler Interactive. He was, well, he basically said, if you come to us with a pitchable prototype or a vertical slice, and you have not done any marketing or PR, basically it's too late. And a couple of years ago, someone on this stage told developers, do not do your own PR marketing because you suck at it. Has that changed? Would you really, because I think it was you were talking about doing as soon as starting PR as soon as you're making the prototype. Are developers actually capable of doing the things that you are
I think
asking
some are.
them to do?
But I want to, there are levels of marketing. I think you guys are smart enough to realize that the marketing I'm talking is different than the marketing, the layers that is being discussed here. When I'm telling you guys go early is, go early, start having that conversation with your players. Because then when you go talk to your publisher, you can already say, we have, it was talked before, then you have, I don't know, 20,000 people on your social media that is interacting with you, like you are creating a buzz around that justifies that your idea is good, and there is, and of course, 20,000 sounds like a big number, but depend on the social media you're playing with. In TikTok, 20,000 is fairly easy to get. I have more than that, and
But you'll find as well, I mean, you can see that the guys from Steel City with, as it was, ESBC, Esports Boxing Club, you know, I think for a year, they've been going since 2020. And I think I've been with them since 2021. So it was a year when they were posting videos of their early prototypes. And bearing in mind, they taught themselves Unity. They'd never made a game, had Ash Habib. So he's learning. He has no idea that you can't just put a game onto Xbox or PlayStation 5. it was completely outside of the industry altogether. So they started putting their own videos up on YouTube. And it worked for them.
I will let you talk, but can I give just one example? I ask for forgiveness because I don't remember the name of the developer, but I can find it for you. They did that with 2 games, but the second game are very easy for me to remember. They had an idea of making a game with an axolot. So they actually made an art of an axolot and put on TikTok and started talking to people on TikTok of what did they think of making a game about an axolot. It was just an art. They didn't have anything else. And with the conversation with the people, the comments were, give it a gun. We want to see an axolot shooting, give it a gun. So they actually created a game that it was an axolot because it gets hungry, nobody's feeding, so the axolot gets a gun and goes shoot to get fed. And they made the game successful, they got the Kickstarter, they did the whole thing because the game was created with the participation of the audience. And it's not that they are burning their bridges, they're just building different bridges from other areas.
Yeah, I think also, I think Flambeer was also a good example when they made Nuclear Throne, I think, where they live streamed the whole process and they really got the community building already started from day one, even though they did not have to pitch to a publisher. Did they have a publisher? No, they did have a publisher.
They ended up having a publisher, but it
But I
was helped
think-
by the fact that they started with Notch.
Yeah, but I think numbers actually speak volumes. If you can show something, and it does not have to be like millions or whatever, but if you can already show you have a core community attached to your product or your game, whether that's your social media following, whether that's views on YouTube, or people on Discord, or a combination of it, I think that will go a long way. Wish lists on Steam are, of course, very important. I would, once you have something playable and something that's presentable and something that you feel confident about, I would already start trying to get wish lists going as soon as possible, because that information will also help you sell in your game to a publisher or a investor.
So my last question before I open it up to the floor is sort of dovetails into this. When you're late, when you're sitting here now and think, oh, shit, I've been working on this game for like 18 months and I've told nobody, that is what you would do. Just go out, make it known, build a community, basically. That's the most important bit?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, and too late. My advice is to start as early as possible. And everything is, of course, a combination of factors. How good is your game? How well is it received? You also have publishers that choose to shadow drop games. They do nothing, and then they book one slot with Jeff Keighley, and here it is. And that also happens. That is a strategy consideration you want to do. But if you are on a lean and mean budget, which I think most of the audience here is, I don't think you can start early enough. You need to start early thinking about these things, because especially when you're tight on budget, strategy and execution of your plan will be a big factor of the success of your game.
Thank you. Go.
No, it's just I wanted to answer your question because imagine you made the game and you're really late, you didn't do any of that, you can't go back in time. My best advice would be get as many nano and micro influencers, the smallest influencers you can get out there, but a ton of them, and put your game to be played by as many people as possible, and start creating now that. There isn't a thing like too late. It has higher risk, higher chance of failure, but even failure can be a really good learning process. So just use whatever point you're in to get out there and start getting that feedback.
Yeah, and also also for media, don't ignore the smaller blogs and the smaller media outlets, because often that's their first gig. and if they are really interested in a writing career with a bigger publication, those people that you already built a relationship with then, they might migrate to bigger platforms. And the same goes for influencers. They're growing, or they are connected to influencers that are bigger than themselves, and they promote your game on your behalf to those people. It can have a network effect if you take time also with the smaller influencers and media. Yeah, and loyalty. Yeah.
I'm looking at the room now. Does anybody has a question for any of these guests? I can see over there. Did we have the?
Yes.
Oh.
Ice cream.
I can.
Thank you. That was a really good presentation. I was wondering, when reaching out to smaller content creators to play your game and stuff like that, how do you recommend approaching them? Writing the email, how to find them. How do you recommend doing that?
Who wants to take this?
I have done this before, so I can, but now it doesn't work. Does it work?
I can't. Does it work?
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have done that before with indie developers. You would be surprised how open nano and micro influencers are if you are an indie developer. Start by telling your story. Be authentic, the way we're saying. Come and say, look, I'm a first-time developer, never did that before. I want feedback. I'm not hiring you. I just want to give you my game. Would you be interested in playing? You will have a few that will go, no, my audience don't like that, but you will have quite a lot that will go, oh, nice, because they are also, remember, influencers are constantly fighting to think what is the content that they will create that they will give traction to them.
You have to develop a thick skin.
Yeah.
You have to get used to being told no, knowing that there will be people out there who will say yes. I mean, that's generally quite often why people, teams, publishers, developers, etc., hire people like us, because we protect you. We go out and get the no's. We go out and try and get the yeses, and we come back and go, well, maybe it's a little bit early, but, they're kind of interested further down the line, so that you don't have to feel those arrows coming in. But don't give up.
Yeah,
Don't
and
give
asking is free. So
The asking, yeah, exactly.
Asking is always free.
Takes
Okay,
the time.
we have time for one
Yeah.
more question. Anywhere in the room, over there.
Hello. So you've kind of touched a bit on this. I was just wondering if you had any tips for people. I feel like one of the things that prevents people potentially going out and starting their marketing early is a fear of that rejection, or a fear of getting it wrong and you've poisoned the well, like you're going to ruin the ability to market it in the future. Do you have any tips for people, or advice that says, hey, don't worry about it because, most people forget about your early marketing, or actually, as long as you can do this, you can twist bad things into good things, like any advice or tips that you've developed?
Well, are you telling the truth? Can you be authentic? Do you believe what you're saying? Can you back it up? Because if you can, even if you feel nervous, even if you feel a little bit unsure, then you're okay. Now, you might need to change. You might need to adapt this a bit further down the line. That's also okay, as long as you're truthful about that. You go out there promising the earth, and we've all seen the stories of people who have done this, and it has come back to bite them. So it is tough, but you get used to it, and that's, again, part of developing the thicker skin. Or team up with a couple of other people, talk to some other developers, read each other's pitches, give each other some hints and tips. Do something like this. Go and speak in front of other students. Get some feedback, and just test the waters a bit.
Yeah.
Then
And also, yeah, see it as an opportunity. If you do get some criticism on your game, try to curveball it into something positive, and that might get you a good relationship with those people, and you can show the product again, when it's in an improved state.
We have to wrap up now. You'll stick around today?
Sure.
I know they have a bunch of great stories to tell. ask Rick for his biggest success with the character editor. I still think that was such a brilliant marketing move. But give him a big round of applause. Rick van Beem, Alison Beasley, and Patty Toledo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patty.